Becky, would you do the roll, please?
Jim Sheeline.
Here.
Doug Farster.
Here.
Rick Humphrey.
Here.
Tom Kitson.
Present.
Arlen McLean.
Present.
Lara Mamini.
Okay, did everybody have a chance to take a look at the minutes? Any additions or corrections? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Moved by Kitson, seconded by Forster. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, motion carried. Thank you. And we do have a visitor this morning, Mr. Kevin Marks at LCIDA for an informational update. All
Thank
yours,
you.
Kevin.
Thank you all. And based on the way the introduction works, it sounds like I need to keep moving here.
Did they give you a copy of the agenda?
Yeah. Had my name on it.
That gets wiped out this morning. But anyway, go ahead, Kevin.
Good morning all. First of all, thank you, Jim, for letting me stop by for a few minutes. Many of you are familiar with when I've come to this group before, I've talked about kind of in work, in progress type of development work and so forth and so on. This morning, I'm hoping that you can indulge me in doing something a little bit different. There's a number of what I'll describe as environmental, economic kind of factors that are affecting what the work.
And the Zoomers.
I think Becky had to yell at me about 3 times the last time I was here about this. So we'll try and keep that right. Okay, cool. So there's a number of environmental and economic factors that are happening. It's going to change the way LCIDA is going to do business. And I thought at the same time that that's happening, it'd be worth talking to, at least beginning the conversation with the county in terms of our engagement with you and vice versa in terms of economic development. So what I want to do is just kind of quickly go over what kind of LCIDA does, how we're organized, and then kind of chat a little bit about these changes I'm talking about and get some quick feedback from you all about what, if anything, we need to do in response to that going forward. I'm not expecting you to walk out this morning with any kind of definitive answers, but just to basically start the conversation. So you should all have a one-page handout that I left for you. Really quickly, the bylaws of the organization basically say that LCIDA is in the business of working to retain businesses in Lee County and also to recruit businesses to the county. The mission is very broad, talks about, industrial, commercial, business enterprises. And the way I view the world and the time that I've got available, I tend to concentrate on what I'll describe as larger commercial entities. And I leave the hospitality and retail and that kind of thing generally to other folks, the chamber or what have you. So larger industrial commercial ventures is what I've been primarily interested in. The organization I work for, a board of roughly 15 people. Specifically, the county has 2 seats and the city has 2 seats. And beyond that, there is an amalgamation of experts in finance and banking, engineering, education, so forth and so on. And that group kind of fluctuates. People come, people go. The primary funders of the operation are from largest to smallest. So the city kicks in $50,000 a year. We get from ComEd, Northern Illinois Gas, a total of around 10,000 from you folks, which we certainly appreciate. And then we also reach out to bankers, healthcare institutions, insurance finance folks who benefit from growth, and they contribute another $15,000 a year. So generally, we may have about $85,000 in operating money a year. Just to keep the lights on, keep the doors open, do the basics of what we do. It costs around $65,000 a year to operate. Now that goes up and down depending on what's going on. As you recall, in 2020, the LCIDA invested $100,000 in small business support, of which about half of that went to city situated businesses and another 50 went to down county or outside of Dixon types of things. So the expenses can vary year to year. So here's kind of what's in my head about what's changing, kind of why we need to perhaps redirect how we spend our time. The 2020 census, first of all, I'm sure you've all studied this, but on the flip of my page here, the results of the 2020 census came out, and it's just not good news for rural Illinois. If you look at the metropolitan counties in the upper and the northeast part of the county, they collectively gained about 150,000 people. The rest of the 90 counties in Illinois lost about 187, 188. So the net loss to the state was about 18,000 people, which in the size of Illinois is really not very big, not a big deal, right? But rural America, it's a big deal. And so this kind of encourages me to redouble our economic development efforts and try and we need to reverse population loss. The city lost about 460 people. Outside of the incorporated areas in Lee County lost about 900. So for a total of like 1,900, 5% of Lee County population left between 2010 and 2020, at least according to the census. And that's not obviously a sustainable thing over time. Now, it's a problem shared by about 89 other counties, so we're certainly not on it. But the good news, I honestly believe that Lee County is really nicely positioned to either minimize that or start to reverse that because of our access to transportation. You know, we've got north, south, east, west interstates. You've got proximity to the metro area, whether you like that or whether you don't. It's certainly a benefit in terms of people who maybe are trying to escape the sprawl, but still stay within driving distance of urban amenities. It's a pretty place for God's sake. You know, we've got a river, we've got farmland, we've got campgrounds. So there's a lot to be said for why people should stay here and come and relocate here. But obviously, jobs is a big part of that. I'm coming from the job part of it. So that's I think an important factor that we need to make sure that we're working hard at. And one of the major elements going forward is the expansion of our business park, which I'll be back next week for the full board meeting to talk a little bit more detail about the expansion availability on the east side of the business park, as well as just all around the tollway for all practical purposes. I've been doing this for 4 years now, and basically I monitor site selector activity through the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity or Intersect Illinois. And when anything looks like an entity looking for a site that might work for us, then I respond to that. I submit I answer a request for information or proposal. In most of the time, though, I can't help people out. I haven't been able to help people out because I don't have any empty buildings. And until now, we really had not had developable land. Developable land is defined by a willing seller, an established price, access to roadway, access to infrastructure, utilities, and those kinds of things. So we were very limited in terms of how we were able to answer somebody looking for 70 acres of developable land, or looking for a vacant 100,000 square foot building, or that kind of stuff. With this whole expansion of land availability that you've heard about in the media and we'll talk about next week, that's completely changed. And so I see LCIDA having to move from kind of a reactive business to a proactive business. So if we've got this now land availability, we have willing sellers, we have infrastructure, we've got a declining population. The organization needs to be out, reaching out, not waiting for people to call, but doing digital marketing, networking with brokers, a much more proactive type of strategy than what we've been able to employ in the past. So that's all. I think that's all. That makes a lot of sense. It's good news. At the same time, so our organization has to think through that in terms of how they want to structure themselves and how they want to react to that. At the same time, you all in the county have had changes, leadership changes in terms of this committee chairman, the board chairman, the county administrator. And so the timing just seems perfect to be able to come back to whether it be you all, whether it be somebody else in the county, and say, what's your desire as far as partnering on an economic development standpoint? In other words, what are you interested in outsourcing versus doing yourself? What do you all want out of the process? I've heard some conversation that you all are trying to formalize, maybe interested in formalizing some economic development infrastructure within the county. And so the timing really seems right to say, what is that about? How do we work together to meet each other's goals, or not, if that's not, the desire, the direction that you all would want to go, and then try and stir that stew so that when we go into 2022, we are working of one mind, if that's at all possible, in terms of how we spend our time, how we invest in economic development, and how preferably we can collaborate one with another. Now, a quick example of what that looks like at a very elementary scale is that when I first started, we had what I'll describe as an economic development committee, which was really informal kind of thing, which involved me, the chamber, the city, and then the county administrator at the time. And that, through people being busy. It wasn't one of those things like a finance committee where we were committed to meet every. So, we did it as we needed it. And then obviously you had a change of personnel. So there was kind of a big gap there. So that was very elementary, kind of entry level kind of thing, if you would. But I think given the challenges, given the opportunities, I'm thinking that something a little bit more formalized, a little bit more accountable would benefit, would be a good thing going forward. And so I simply throw that out to say, preliminary thoughts, what do you think? If there's more conversation to have, which is obviously there is, how give some thought to how might that be accomplished and how we can potentially leverage this current situation of, I think, enhanced economic development capacity.
So what I'm hearing you ask is because right now, as far as the representation from the county, John Nicholson is sitting on the LCIDA board. Are you looking at a separate committee structure, Kevin, that you'd want county to participate in, or is that what I'm hearing? Or
I think that that would be jumping to the conclusion before we had a conversation about what you all see as the pluses and minuses of your efforts today, and how you might want to change that. So I come with really no preconceived organizational ideas. I mean, one of the possibilities, one of the things I could potentially bring to the table for you is do a little bit of research in terms of how other EDOs, economic development organizations, relate to county boards in terms of what their organizational structure is. By the way, before I forget, Wendy's also been introduced to our board. So the county's had historically 2 slots, out of 15, and that's not important one way or the other, just to tell you what it's looked like. So yeah, I don't know what the organization is. I'd actually prefer, before we decide on the organization, I would like the opportunity to have a conversation with the right group or individuals or whatever, and just say, what's the county's desire in terms of it being involved in economic development or not? I mean, you're government, right? So it's kind of up to you if you concentrate on roads, bridges, law enforcement, things of that nature. So I've never had this conversation with you all in depth since I started. And so I think it'd be helpful to have that with somebody. And then basically say, how do we then, how can LCIDA be accountable to the county in terms of what they want? And then what's the county's participation in that? And that doesn't just mean money, that means in time and communication and so forth and so on.
so just so the committee knows, Kevin and I have talked a number of times, and I've basically told him that communication is really key for the relationship between LCIDA and to understand, what, we need to understand what they're doing and what they're working on, and, within, the things that, because a lot of times, so many times, as we all know, in economic development, you don't really are able to discuss too much of what's going on, of the details, until the end. But as much as that can be communicated and whatnot. So communication is the key. Arlen, go ahead.
I had the pleasure or the responsibility of negotiating the 911 with basically city council. And I felt with that and some other things, and I've been on you guys' board 3 or 4 times in my history, I think. And I always had the feeling that they thought they were able to, if we just do what they say, we'd be brilliant, and on the negotiations, I was really disappointed because I knew they had done the research on what other counties have done and tried to tell me that was not the case and whatever. So I think the trust thing is probably more than anything else to make sure that we are communicating for both our best interests. Because I felt very strongly they were just doing their best interests and what they could get from us. I also have a bias based on, I think with all we've done on wind farms and electrical things, we're in an ideal position. I'm assuming we have the high capacity line going from here to Rochelle. So we don't need that's not too far for people to drive for the job. So we'll get our share of jobs if there's expansion there, but also we could do some combinations of a marketing thing, because I kind of have the same feeling about Rochelle's thing, as long as they get the electricity and stuff. So I always felt that we were being negotiated as not a partner, but a subsidiary or just to the county. So for what it's worth, I think that's an issue that we need to work on.
Yeah, Kevin, 4 years ago, I think we partnered up some with Rochelle, and you guys sat in that meeting with us, or one or two, where we had reached out actually to Jason Anderson. It doesn't matter who, but and said, as we grow into Lee County, which is their growth area, and if you look to the west, Whiteside County is going to come our way, or Rock Falls rather, is going to come our way as they do stuff. And I think we got to continue that partnership with those two. But along with that, and I'd like to see us work that direction, just my thoughts. But at one point in meeting with Jason, and I, right, wrong, or indifferent, I'm just using his name because he had the reference. He had talked about the future being partnering up maybe 2 or 3 counties, or maybe, and he was talking then about Rochelle joining into a bigger group to try and land some of this business. And I would love to see it right here in Dixon. I mean, that's obviously where I'd like to see it. But if we can get someone into Lee County where we've got the tax revenue, the jobs, but we need that, we need those buildings, the infrastructure, so we've got some tax revenue, not just be a bedroom county. So I guess that's the direction I'd like to see us continuing working with those partners if we possibly can. And I don't know where we're at now. I know we had reached out, we got you guys involved, and there was a group of 3 of us started meeting with Rochelle to see what we went over to see what they were doing and where they were going. And they were talking about a bridge in Lee County and one thing and another. And I know you guys met with them a few times. I don't know if that's still active or if it's kind of falling apart, but I think we got to look at bigger partners than just the county and the city. That's just my opinion.
So can I answer that real quick?
Absolutely.
So, I'm sorry. I told you. You have to get me a lot of beers.
When you come here more, you get more used to it.
You don't get yelled at as often.
So I can tell you very substantively that I go to Jason's board meeting and Jason's come to our board meeting. So on a monthly basis. So that
Good.
openness, if you would, definitely exists. So that's my one observation. On the other, second observation, I 100% agree with you that regionalism is certainly a good thing.
Okay.
And sometimes that's difficult. It's sometimes difficult to actually put in place because there's always going to be, I mean, Jason, God bless him, is always going to be a Rochelle first guy.
Yeah.
And I'm always going to be a Dixon, Lee County first guy.
Oh, I agree.
And so, so that how it's just, the good news though, I guess, is that the proverbial rising water floats all boats to some degree. And in terms of this issue, he eventually, if that project jackpot ever actually gets built and announced and open, I mean, that's 140 jobs, and some number of those people are going to live in Lee County, right? And vice versa. I mean, I've got, I can't quote the numbers, but there's statistics I could actually bring next week about, county inter-county commuters kind of thing. And so, so I'm perfectly happy to be engaged with Jason. To a lesser degree, Whiteside. I just don't see many of those folks many times.
Right.
And and so I'm not adverse to it whatsoever. At some point in time, it can be too unwieldy to have too many friends.
Oh, yeah, I just referenced that national building that's sitting there.
Right.
In Lee County.
Right. That, by the way, is full.
Is it? Okay, good.
It recently changed hands, but I talked to the guy who owned it before he sold it, and he said, it's a combination, I think, Simcoe, if I'm not mistaken, and Wall. The place is full, which I didn't know that. You never know.
Oh, I didn't know that
was full.
No.
So he's full, he's paying his taxes. He's got another roughly 35 acres next to it, in which at least the previous owner was willing to do, a build to suit kind of type of thing. Good. But, in terms of Whiteside County, some of my strategies, we need to get there first. We needed this project out here by the tollway before Rock Falls got there.
Oh, yeah,
Right?
absolutely. I agree.
And so I don't disagree with you at all. And Jason and I talk to each other all the time. I think there's more than we can do.
And I agree with you. I think about Lee County first also. So I mean,
One more thing, I think we've got a great opportunity now if people can communicate openly, because there's a lot of money floating on federal money stuff, and be able to communicate and say, here's our major stuff, what you guys are, and do it as equal partners, because we're not gonna have that opportunity ever again.
Once in a generation, they say, right?
Well, thank you so much for coming in, Kevin. Appreciate your time and beginning this conversation. And I'm sure we'll have more communication and conversation as we go forward.
All right, great. Feel
Appreciate
free,
it.
if anyone has any further questions, comments, reach out directly. Otherwise, we'll see you next week for sure.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much.
All right. Further visitors, Charlie left the room. So Mr. Copine, you have anything for us?
No, sir, I haven't put a new spoon in the pot yet, but
Oh.
I'm sure something will come about. No, sir, thank you.
Oh, always looking forward to that. Nancy, do you have anything for us?
Not at this time, thank you.
All right, Greg, you have anything for the committee?
Just a few things that are on the agenda down and just information stuff. You want me to go through that now?
No, we'll take care of that at the proper time in the agenda. Tom, do you have anything for us? Mr. Simonton? D. Duffy? Everybody's saying no. Okay. Courtney, Kennedy, and Chris Henkel, nothing for us this morning. Stacy, good. All right, I'll just wait. Good morning. Good to see you. So, Jennifer, gee, I almost had a brain freeze there. I'm sorry. You'll get used to that. You have anything for us this morning? All right, Paula.
Really want me to talk about anything since I have all this other stuff on here? I can start. No, I don't have anything.
All right, very good.
Hey, Jim,
Yeah.
do you mind if I have a couple minutes here?
Oh, I'm sorry. See, Wendy, I was used to you being over
I know-
here. and
I
now
know-
you're
I know you
back
were.
there. Okay, Wendy, would you have anything for the?
Mostly, I just wanted to put something real quick on your radar. Moving forward this month at the full board meeting, you will be seeing some revisions to your current board rules and procedures. Just wanted to give you a couple highlights about those and what the intent behind them was. First and foremost, your current board rules require that you would determine your county board meetings and committee dates in advance of the fiscal year, which would mean by December 1. The Open Meetings Act allows you to do that by the beginning of the fiscal year or by the beginning of the calendar year. The reason this was significant and came forward is that there's been over the years, many times individual board members have questioned why we approve committee dates and board meeting dates in November when in December every other year we have new board members that would show up, and why wouldn't we allow them to have some opportunity to weigh in on when the dates are. So what we're doing in these revised version is to essentially quote the Open Meetings Act, which would allow you to solidify your board dates, meeting dates prior to the fiscal year or prior to the calendar year, whatever works out for you guys, and give you that little bit of flexibility. The other thing that we're looking at adding to the board rules are the idea of attending remotely for board members. Your existing board rules do not allow anyone to attend remotely. You can certainly dial in and listen, but you can't participate, vote, or receive a per diem right now under our current board rules. Obviously, the governor's executive order earlier this year overrode that for a temporary period of time. Now that that's expired, we're back to you need to be physically present in the room. Once again, the Open Meetings Act, though, would allow under 3 conditions or 3 situations for board members to attend remotely. So the proposal is to modify our board rules to mirror the Open Meetings Act and allow for remote participation in the situation of either yourself being injured or ill, a family member being injured or ill, or being out of town for a business-related activity. Under those circumstances in the Open Meetings Act, board members could attend remotely if you approve that in your board rules. So the current proposal is to do that. Lastly, we had to modify the board rules then to state that if you did and were attend remotely, that you would receive per diem and you could legally vote on issues if you're attending remotely for one of those 3 reasons. By the way, one quick update also in the board rules is that in following the Open Meetings Act, in order to continue on with a committee or board meeting, you still would need to have a quorum physically present in the room. So the board rules will state that if you intend to participate remotely, that you would let let Becky Brenner know so that we can make sure we still have that physical quorum in the room and be able to conduct business. So that's kind of an important factor in that. And that again is Open Meetings Act rules, not necessarily our rules. We're just following and adopting essentially what the Open Meeting Act says. So with that said, Jim, I do have a couple other items, but they're on the agenda. That was the only thing that really wasn't formally on the agenda. I just wanted to give you a heads up about it.
Okay, committee have any questions for Wendy in regards to the items you brought up, Arlen?
I saw some things in revised rules. What committee is handling that, or
Administrative services.
and that then will that come back to finance? Because probably doesn't have fiscal issues, or is it just going to go from there to exec?
From there to exec and on to you at the full board next Thursday.
I have any
Concerns?
If I have any questions on some of it, I should do that before then. Got it.
Okay, very good. All righty, treasurer's financial monthly report. You are on.
Things look fine.
You what?
Things look fine.
Things look fine?
Yeah, do you guys have any questions?
Have very succinct report from the treasurer. Thank you very much. Is there any questions to the treasurer on her report that things are just fine?
It's a good thing.
I didn't see anything. Does anybody have any questions for Paula? All right. Thanks, Paula. Things do look fine. All right. Clearum's not here for the Gredco, and nothing on insurance that I'm aware of. No monthly resolutions, old business, board organizational software, and
Jim, that's also down below under new business because there was a motion out of the ARPA committee. I can address it whenever you would like.
let's do that all together. Okay, so let's move on to old business B, motion to approve Whitley to perform, and we need to take that off the table. So I need a motion to take the audit motion that we tabled last month off the table. Moved by Forrester, seconded by Kitson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. So that is now off the table. Paula, would you like to take that away?
Yes, I would. I would ask that you reject that motion then.
So we're making the motion, and this is, now we're moving into new business, the motion to reverse the decision to hire Lotterback and Hammond.
No, actually, you need to make a decision on the one that you tabled. So the one that was tabled was
Oh, that's right.
to approve a 3-year
A 3-year.
contract with Whitley.
Yep.
So
Thank you.
I can
Appreciate
give you the
that.
whole, yeah.
So did we have to go back to because there was a motion and then we tabled.
Right.
Brought it back off the table, so now we can vote on the motion.
Right.
Okay,
So
so we're entertaining a vote for the motion to engage Whipley for the 3-year. All those in favor signify by saying aye. No, because the motion's already on. That motion was already made.
Last month, we gave the approval to hire Whipley or offer them a 1-year contract.
no, you're going to do that. You're going to do that under new business.
3-year.
3-year.
Right. So okay. So last month I brought you a motion to approve a 3-year contract. We had discussion, didn't really want to do that. We tabled it. So now what you need to do is you need to actually reject that. You need to vote no, that you
This
do
is
not
no.
want to approve a 3-year contract. Then you're going to make a motion to reverse the approval of the Lotterback contract from several months ago. And then we're going to approve a 1-year contract. So you have 3 motions you're going to need to do over these. Yeah.
Is that clear as mud?
Did that make sense?
I had to read this about 5 times to understand what we were doing, but I figured it out finally.
Shouldn't we vote to reverse the one first, so we don't have 2 motions on the floor?
No, because you don't, that's not a motion on the
Dispose
floor
of the
yet.
motion by voting it down, Tom.
Right.
Right. Shouldn't we do that before?
That's what we're doing right now.
Okay, but the old business says to approve Whitley to perform, and next it says, in the new business, it says, reverse the decision. Don't we want to reverse?
No, we want to
that?
reverse the Lauterbach decision from June,
That's a separate issue.
the separate issue.
Yes.
Okay, I think Okay. I'm afraid we're gonna have two motions on the floor.
No, you don't. You don't have two
We'll
motions
take
on the
them one
floor.
at a time.
Right, but you've already got a motion
And that's what,
to
that's,
accept Lotterback, which we're gonna reverse.
no,
That's not a motion yet.
Okay.
Right.
All right, go ahead. Sorry.
that's
Thank you for
okay.
clarification.
I want everybody to understand what we're doing because it is rather confusing, but
Can we be privy to why we're doing this? Because we were really excited about getting Whipley's bid. before.
Yeah. There was a conflict, Arlen, in regards, they were doing some actuarial work for us. And so you can't, they'd be basically auditing themselves. You can't do that, right?
This came up
That,
last.
and
The other issue, Arlen, was they were very vague in their arrangement letter and their contract. And I worked with them to try to get them to commit to, we're not going to increase this, we're not going to have additional costs, and they wouldn't kind of specify exactly what they were covering. So
No.
I was concerned that we were going to have some
Yeah.
additional costs crop up later.
right. Got it. Okay, is everybody clear what we're doing? Okay. Awesome. You can handle the truth. You thought I was missed that.
No, I didn't.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion on the, that we just took off the table signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. Motion fails. Okay, so that concludes old business. Now we're moving on to new business. And we'll entertain a motion to reverse the decision to hire Lotterback and Hammond to conduct the county's audit for a 3-year period.
That you
Entertain-
approved in June.
Not to,
Yep, no, go ahead.
but at the full board, didn't we vote to approve this?
No, it's only done in the finance committee.
Sure.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep, did my homework. Trust me.
Well, that's fine. I just thought we voted on it at the full board the
No.
following week after we approved this.
No, it just went to finance.
Like we're doing all this but not, but anyway. Go ahead.
Okay, so I need a motion. Moved by Humphrey, seconded by McLean. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay, motion carries. So now we've reversed that prior decision and now we're to be approval to extend Whipley's contract to perform the county audit for an additional single year for 2020, fiscal year 2021. I would
I'll make that motion again.
moved by Humphrey, seconded by Forrester. All those, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nays, motion carried.
Thank you.
Welcome. Whew, yeah, I'm worn out by all that. Man, nap time. All right. We are to new business C, new bullies. This is the next several things. They're, man, Greg is up there and ready to rock and roll.
I don't want to delay anything.
Go ahead, Greg.
And actually, this is informational because it's probably, we're not going to receive a bill for these things we want done to the rooftop units at the new courts building because it probably won't get billed for next year. So it'll be coming out of next year's budget. So I'm just informing the board that we're requesting to replace all the pulleys, the drive pulleys on the 2 rooftop units at the new courts building. They're so old and wore out that the belts aren't staying on the units. They're just tearing them up. So we're changing them to a bigger size belt, a wider belt, a little heavier duty, and put new pulleys on and new belts. The cost of that is going to be $2,840 to do that. It's necessary. I just need probably the go ahead to order these and then have it, or do I wait till next budgetary?
This is a regular budgetary item, Greg. So
Right.
it's going to hit next fiscal year. But it's informational.
Okay, sounds good. The other thing we have is the control system. There's a couple of controls that we held off changing on the rooftop units because we were trying to get the present control system that's new now in there to see what we had working operational and what we don't. It's something that controls the outside air dampers that sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. I held off on this because with what I had in my capital budget for replacement of these units, and also I had it installed in the ARPA, I did not want to spend this money unless, and if we were changing those units, but if it's gonna be long-term, I think we're gonna have to change these units so we don't have a failure on this systems. The cost of that was $11,618 to replace both controls on both rooftop units. And again, that won't be coming out of this budgetary, so we'll have to either take it out of my maintenance budgetary, or if we go some other route. It's just informational right now, but I would like to have the nod to go ahead at least on this. I don't know if we can do that or not, so I can get the things ordered and get them at least installed so I can pull it out of next year's budget.
There again, it's a budgetary item for next year. So.
Oh, so you can't decide on it?
Well, it's under your purview as department head, maintenance department.
And some, if I recall our conversation correctly, some of that $11,000 equipment will retrofit onto a new unit if we do.
No, that's why I held off on this till the last,
Okay.
because if we do not change those units, we're gonna have to change these for sure. If we're gonna change the units, then I don't want to spend $11,000 a week, and I don't think we're gonna get it done by summertime. So that's where we really need these controls. So we might end up having to do it and just, I hate to trash $11,000, but I don't have any choice really.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Greg or John, properties did give the head nod to go ahead and go forward and do
Yes.
this. Is that
It was
correct?
approved in-
Yeah.
it was
Yes,
approved in
yes.
properties
Because,
to do it.
and again, it's going to come out of his budget for next year. So
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. The fire extinguishers or,
We had a fire alarm,
detectors.
fire alarm annual checkup here in this building. They found that 12 fire detectors were not working. They sent me an annual, the report on what the findings were when they did the testing. But prior to that, the Dixon City Fire Department contacted me and said, what are you doing on this? I'm like, I don't even have a report yet. So they got the report before I did. And there's 12 units that consist of 12 units need to be replaced at $225.34 a piece. So it comes out to $2,704.08. With the fire department, they only give you a certain length of time to get these changed and bring them up to code. So I already got a hold of the alarm company and told them to go ahead and go forth with replacing these units so we stay within the code. We'll have to. The sheriff recommended that maybe we could take this out of a tort fund. And again, this might not come in till that, with us being at the end of the budgetary, I don't think I'll receive a bill till into the next year.
Paul, can you address that?
We've actually eliminated the tort fund going forward, so it just needs to come out of your operating budget because rather than levying for the tort fund, we're just levying it into the general fund now. So.
Okay, so just take it out of next year's budget.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep, that
sounds
works.
good. Thank you very much. That's all I have, I think.
Got a question? Got a question?
No.
I have one question. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Arlen.
Are you sure we can't take that after the fact out of our budget? Because that's one of the things we talked about early in the initial thing when they thought there was money. I thought you could spend it, whatever your budget, you could get it reimbursed still. Does anybody know?
So Arlen, yes, it's possible that And Greg has submitted to ARPA a request for updating the HVAC systems. At this point in time, the ARPA committee did not identify that as a top 5 priority. So it's kind of been set in the pending pile. It's not been ruled out. It's not been said no to, but it's still pending. Even if the ARPA committee had said, yes, let's move forward with this, we obviously would have to go out for bid and then, be able to accept a bid and then get contractors in here. So we're talking months and months, even if he had the approval to go forward today, which is why we're kind of thinking that he needs to move forward with these parts. Now, is your question, can we retroactively go back and cover some of that? Probably not, because the items that he's discussing right now are to keep the system up and running. It's not to mitigate COVID. The HVAC systems, pardon? Well, he's not, the HVAC systems that he proposed earlier would have filtration systems in it, which would help to mitigate COVID or any other virus for that matter. That's why it qualified. These equipment pieces that he needs probably aren't going to qualify. But we still have the question about whether or not we're going to do anything with HVACs going forward under the ARPA umbrella.
And we don't have all the money in our, we still have money that's still sitting there. So my question is, I'm surprised you can't go back if it's
But again, I don't believe this would be an allowable expense anyway. But the bigger question is, replacing the HVACs and filtration system, should that be considered by ARPA? And as Greg pointed out, at this point in time, we've got to keep the systems, limping along. So he's got
no problem with what we're doing. The question is, if you can't get it back from ARPA anyway, if it's
I don't believe so.
It's not COVID related, Arlen. It's not COVID related. And that has to
air,
be tied
air
back to-
filtration and
on
air
that. It
movement.
doesn't kill the COVID virus. It's air handler stuff.
Okay.
Which was, but it's not. I don't think we can stretch it that far without breaking something.
Anything else for Greg on these items? All right. Thanks, Greg. Appreciate you giving us an update.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to new business G, memorandum of understanding between Lee County and Lots.
So Jim, if I could intercept on this one, we've had a flurry of conversation and questions that have come up just this morning on the draft document that I sent out. So it would be my recommendation that you table this until next month and I can work through some of the recommendations that have flying at me this morning.
So before I entertain a motion to table, is there any comments or questions in regards to what was sent out? Marlon, go ahead.
Questions, I'll just.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Wendy in regards to the MOU?
The intent behind this, by the way, just a quick overview, was that, we identified earlier, I believe it was the finance committee that identified earlier this year that Lots was not reimbursing the county for insurance costs specifically for the building or for the vehicles. So that was modified in the budget and I was requested to solidify that with a written memorandum of understanding. So what I did is I gathered up the two that already exist, one for services to the treasurer's office staff and one for services of the maintenance staff, 2 lots. And I compiled them all, or that was my intent, is to compile them all into this one single document, including the insurance costs. So that was my goal. But again, I had a flurry of questions this morning, so I think I just need to regroup and respond to some of those questions.
You ever discover who is actual owner of the property? Of the building of Lots?
I believe I looked this up and did I not send out an email to all of you, or maybe it was just you, Rick, that it is labeled as Lee County as the owner. I'm pretty sure I looked this up and I think I sent this out.
Just to have I guess it rubs me the wrong way is that they're on the receiving end of all this grant money. Just paid for, I think it was $200,000 for a lot to build a new facility in Ogle County. And we have just, I guess, for lack of a better answer, have gifted the land out here that the building is currently sitting on. So I don't know what anybody else's thoughts are, but I think we should be at least receiving some rent, or they can turn around and purchase it. and just be done with it.
Can I comment on that?
My opinion, I'll talk to Wendy.
Can I come? Can I-
This, in my opinion, is giving us more liability because it gives us county stuff on that. And I wanted to do it as a temporary thing till there was lots combined and what, but it's a real bad practice if anything happened between now and then with how the thing's written on liability. Makes the county totally liable.
And I understood that you had some reservations about that, Arlen. So yeah, we can definitely talk about that. Paula had a comment.
Yeah, Paula has comment.
So as far as ownership and things out there, so the county would own the land and the county would own the business or the building because the county is the recipient of the LOTS grant. So LOTS is not a separate entity. They're actually just another department of the county, but they're funded with grant funds. So we own that property and we own that, the county owns that property in that building. But generally, when you've bought things with federal funds and things, if you try to sell it at a certain point or whatever, there are some restrictions on how you can do that. But we own it, but we're also the recipient of the grant.
So then how did they purchase the land that they're going to build this new facility on?
They bought that with grant money.
Okay, so,
In the Ogle County property was bought with grant money.
so just because we had the property,
Yes.
we have to give it to them free and clear?
Well, I mean,
And
we
you
own
see
it.
my point is they bought a piece for 200.
Right, but I guess what I'm saying is we're paying, kind of in a way, paying rent to ourselves.
So I think the question
That's
that
what we'd
you're
be doing.
raising, Rick, is going to be part of that process as LOTS moves on to be a separate entity, becomes a master transit district on their own. Then at that point, we're going to have to make a decision on whether or what we want to retain ownership of that property, charge rent, and do all those things that you're talking about, or are we just going to sell them the property and say goodbye?
Yep.
So
I mean, I
that's
think
that's
it's-
further
We're at a
conversation.
decision point here. I mean, it sounds like they're trying to get out under our umbrella eventually. I mean, I don't know if that's the case,
Mutual feelings that way.
and that's fine, but with that being said, then we need to make it a clear cut.
Right. Well, that, again, that's conversation that,
I just didn't know if it'd be something we need to look at putting in this.
no, this was just a vehicle for us to make sure that the county's recovering the costs that we're incurring through administering those grants.
Okay. So we're tabling this?
Yes, I'm entertaining a motion to table,
I'll make a
moved by
motion to
Humphrey,
table.
seconded by Kitson. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, motion carried. So we'll talk about that next month. Go to item H, American Rescue Plan Act Committee, motion to approve Old Lee County Courthouse audio video upgrade request. Wendy, I'm going to defer to you. Yeah, what?
Let me get to a microphone again.
Yep.
Becky just told me I had copies, but she said she's already, she have copies of this. If you don't know, I'm just gonna read some. So if you will recall, a month ago, I brought to you a partial proposal for technology upgrades and a software upgrade to a county board organizational software upgrade. And your request a month ago was to come back with some additional information that showed a little bit better, a complete picture. So it should have been emailed out to you, but I also, as I said, I did make copies just in case you didn't have that available to you. By the way, this is one of the great things this onboard software would do, is that it would allow you through your tablet or laptop to be able to scroll down, click on a live link and pull exactly up this presentation here without us having to print all of these. So bottom line is I've got several different components to this proposal. First component is the onboard board organizational software. And just a quick overview, we talked about this last month, but bottom line is this would transition the board from paper to tablets, and you would access agendas and all related documents through live links in your agenda for both committee meetings and your full board meeting. It would also, the big benefit is going to be on the behind the scenes administrative side. So for Becky and myself, in building agendas and putting this information together, we are going to be able to do that with a whole lot less steps than we do right now. Just one of the examples is all of the flurry of emails that you receive from Becky on all of these items, all the agendas, all the related documents. There is a flurry of emails that she sends out to try and keep you all informed. This would allow you to log into your personal login information for this software, and you would have access to this without Becky sending you all individual emails with individual attachments. You would get a notification that says, hey, the agenda for Finance Committee is ready and out there. Go out there, look at the agenda, and you'll see through live links on the agenda these documents. This is something that came up earlier. Essentially, Bob has used this at school board meetings and was really interested in following up on this. So I did some research, and through a committee, including Jack Scrogstead and Marilyn Shippert, we did do the research and narrowed it down to this particular vendor. So what you're seeing here is the cost of the onboard software. By the way, this cost is an annual fee. This is a cloud-based service. So all these documents are going to be housed up in the cloud, which would allow you to access these documents from your desktop at home, from your phone, from your tablet sitting here. In a multitude of ways, you'll be able to access this because all the documents are technically going to be organized and stored in the cloud, so to speak. Along with that $10,548 annual fee, you are going to have to make a hardware equipment purchase upfront so that you all have the tablets necessary to be able to pull this up. The hardware equipment, and this is based on the software provider's specs and recommendation, is essentially a 10.5-inch iPad that is compatible with not only with the software, but in their opinion is the most accessible way to go about getting this information. So the iPads, you'll see quoted on the first page of that. A total of, I've rounded to $19,000. That's the one-time fee, one-time cost. I don't want to be misleading. 5 years from now, when the iPad, runs out or, is no longer supported, then you might have to buy, you are going to have to buy the most recent version of the iPad. So there will be some ongoing costs for this, but not annual costs. I want to be clear about that. Then last but not least, related but not directly related, is the upgrades to this room. I don't know if any of you are aware, but we have continued to lose microphones over time, and we are down to the microphones you see in this room. If we lose one more toggle, I'm not sure what the technical term is, that's why I looked at Becky. If we lose one more toggle, and a toggle, by the way, feeds 6 microphones. If we lose one more, we're going to lose 6 microphones. The system has been going downhill for a while. So the concept was, let's upgrade the technology, allow us to be able to feed this information out to Zoom for remote meetings, et cetera, et cetera. So what you're seeing there is a bid for new microphones, new video monitors, not the projector you see in front of you, but rather large monitors. Think of it as a big screen TV type of thing that you and the public would be able to see. This also includes speakers. One of the reasons you get so much feedback in this room and echo is that these 2 speakers up front are feeding the entire room, and so it bounces off of these concrete walls and gives you this echo. The proposal is to come in with multiple speakers, either up in the ceiling tiles that would come down and would minimize that bouncing off of the walls, and it would be spread throughout the room so you'd be able to hear better. Or you do wall mounted on the pillars or adjacent to the pillars, multiple speakers on each side, which again would help eliminate some of the echo. That estimate was, oh, and by the way, that included, because this estimate, this quote came from Engel Electric. Engel Electric also then incorporated into their package what we would need for the additional electrical outlets to have the TV monitors be able to be plugged in various places. We needed electrical upgrades to the room. All of that is wrapped up in the package, and I did, including in your package, is the entire quote, so you can see what's in there. That quote came back at $128,000. I did ask for a second quote of a vendor here in town, Audio Video Connection. They came, they reviewed it, they took notes. And when the deadline came and I reached out to them, they said, realistically, Wendy, we cannot get you a quote for weeks, if not months. We're super busy and we can't hire staff. Sound familiar? So I didn't get that. What I do have that I also included in your packet is a year ago, Dave Bowers, when he was looking at the phone system upgrades, he also asked then contractor FISIC, phone contractor, to give us an estimate to upgrade the audio video in this room. So that is included, albeit a year out of date. I wanted you to see it as a reference so that you would know that this quote was not completely out of the ballpark. A year ago, the quote from FISIC was about $112,000, as I recall off the top of my head. So you've got those three different components. You've got the software, the hardware needed to run the software, and then the audio video electrical upgrades. What I am seeking from you today is the head nod or approval on the software and purchase of the hardware being the tablets. You can give me a not to exceed number if you want to do that. Regarding the audio, video, and electrical, clearly we need to go out for bid on this. It's well exceeds the $30,000 threshold for bidding. So what I would be seeking today from you is just essentially a head nod that says, yes, develop the bid specs, go out for bid, and then bring me back the bids, bring us back the bids, and then you can decide where we go from here on the audio video portion of this. Questions?
So just to be clear, also, the ARPA committee did approve this as a qualified expense.
Yes, in
for
their
the ARPA
defense,
dollars.
they didn't have any of the numbers presented to them last Thursday because I was still desperately trying to collect them from those entities that were giving them to me. But what the motion was that it was considered one of our top 5 priorities, and based on that, they would feed it to you at finance for the final determination, because you then have the benefit of having the dollars associated with the proposed project.
So the motion would be if you
I
guys
made the
want-
motion out of ARPA. So it was to bring it back to finance. Let the finance committee decide if we want to move forward with this. It was identified in our committee as a top 5.
Mhm.
The money was, I guess, set aside under the ARPA funds. And so I guess we're here to discuss.
So I guess from a procedural standpoint, probably should have 2 motions. First motion would be to accept the proposal as presented in regards to moving forward with the onboard software and purchase of the tablets through ARPA funding. And then the second motion would be to authorize Wendy to move forward with the bid process on the other. And then those bids, once received, would come back to this committee.
More than likely, we're gonna need 3 motions.
Oh, what's the third one?
Well, if you combine these 2 and if it bumps over 30,000, then that's gonna have to go out for bid. So you'd probably want to do them on an individual basis, the hardware and the software.
Oh, yep, you're right.
You're
right.
And
Yep.
so those 2 separate motions, and then the third one would be the other one needs to go out for bid. If that,
We're just loving motions today. So everybody clear on that then? Okay, so I would entertain motion to approve the subscription of the onboard software, not to exceed.
And the only thing I've got before you today that is an exact number is the onboard software. In fact, you have the actual bid.
That is a hard number. So
That
we-
is an
we can-
absolute hard number.
Okay, so that we can do as presented. Okay, so the first motion would be to approve the onboard software subscription as proposed in our packet.
how long was this bid good for, Wendy?
Actually, till the end of this month of November. Now, can I go back to the table and ask for an extension? Probably, but technically right now the bid
You
is to
wanna
the
get
end of
the
this
motion
month.
and then you can ask any other
Motion made.
questions you want.
Motion made.
Okay, moved by Kitson, seconded by McLean.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Then we have a conversation.
Discussion.
How are we going to communicate with the department heads? Are they going to have,
Well, the good news is in our conversations, those of us that investigated this software pointed that exact thing out to the software provider. And so they came back with, after meeting with their team, came back and said that department heads will be allowed a login at no additional charge. This software is a per user fee. So that's every user that we have that we put into here, there's going to be a fee change for that. Except that department heads will have their own login to be able to access all this information at no additional cost.
But what if they want to review it or bring it to the meeting, they're just gonna have to run copies like we do for us?
A lot of them already have a laptop, Arlen, because they can use a laptop too if they want to bring something forward.
The compatible laptop.
Yeah, and by the way, these monitors that we're talking about getting, or even in absence of the monitors right up here, we envision that this will go through the agenda items. So you can pull it up here right on the screen. Eventually we'll have multiple screens, so it's a little easier to see. Department heads would have that option too. And for those department heads, and by the way, I forgot to mention, Jim, that we do have a few people out on Zoom here that may or may not want to, offer something. I forgot to tell you that, not wearing my IT hat correctly. But for those department heads that sit right at their desks and participate, they can do that. I think I mentioned last month, this is integrated with Zoom, one of the few platforms that is, which is why we chose this one. So you can have a Zoom meeting running up here and still pull up the agenda and the related documents for viewing of people in this room. And for that matter, people out on Zoom or on YouTube.
Wendy, do we know, unfortunately, based on the history of the programs we bought for the treasurer's office and the clerk's office, and we had all kinds of problems, do we have any references on these people? Do we have anything written in what they'll do to service the product? I mean, is it, because that was a nightmare we went through there. I don't want to go through that again. I know you don't.
I do know, as a matter of fact. So yeah, I mean, I didn't print anything for you, but that was part of our investigation with Jack, Marilyn, and ourselves when we were, quote, interviewing potential vendors. Not only did we look at the, applicability of the software program, but it was about their customer support and the response time. So yeah, that was part of the research.
I'm fine with you guys doing it. I don't need to read it. I just want to make sure we got something, because that was a nightmare for everybody, including the attorney's office. Okay, thank you.
Rick. So is the audio, video, electrical upgrades needed along with this software?
No, if you chose not to move forward with the audio video, you'd be shooting yourself in the leg because we're going to be out of microphones soon. But no, you could do one without doing the other. You do need the tablets, obviously, but
My concern is that if we buy this stuff now, it's an annual fee. It starts a subscription cost. We might be 6 months, who knows how long out before we can get a bid process on this other stuff. If they're both needed to work hand in hand, I guess is concerned getting the stuff first prior to.
yeah, they're not both needed. You could, and by the way, I think I mentioned this last month, but I didn't today. This eventually you could use these tablets to actually do essentially roll call voting. At every vote you take, you could push a button that says, "This is how I vote." The good news about that is it's super transparent to the public, but it also feeds into the minutes, the structure of the minutes. And so it's useful for the clerk taking the minutes of the meetings. My proposal would be that we would purchase Onboard as soon as possible, because we do need to do some behind the scenes loading of all of this. They don't just hand us a laptop and off we run. There's got to be some staff time invested into setting all of this up. So if we can purchase the software and get the tablets ordered, because again, the tablets aren't going to be something we can necessarily get our hands on, the shortage of equipment and stuff. So if we can get started at that, we could implement in the next few months. You could start using it, get familiar with it. And then 6 months down the road, by then, hopefully we've got some direction on the audio video, but more importantly, you could then start using it for the voting. But it's all going to be a phase. I think logically the onboard software and the tablets are phase one, step one to get started rolling down the process.
And there's another reason why we probably need to move forward as quickly as possible. And that's what Paul alluded to last month's meeting in regards to as we're operating right now. And it hasn't been an issue because the county hasn't been sued. We haven't had requests, but it's like me. I have all my county email stuff on my personal laptop. I'm discoverable as Charlie can call Hillary. Yeah, yeah. Let's not go down that road, but I know Charlie has expressed many times about the concern of using our personal equipment for county business. And it's a real problem and we need to get this resolved. So Charlie, do you like to speak to that at all? All right, very good. So I've got a call for the question. All those in favor of moving forward and ordering the onboard software utilizing ARPA money signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Okay, the next motion would be to purchase of the hardware. 26 iPads and 26 Logitech Combo Smart Keyboard Case for iPad for a total estimated cost of $18,926. Now, is this another hard number? Do we need to put in just a?
What the vendor supplied for me was a direct link to, this is an Apple product, so they supplied me with a direct link to going online and ordering your iPads from there. Now, Paul has reminded me that that's probably the worst case scenario price because there's no government pricing in that. And he said he can route around that and get government pricing on this. I just went the most direct route in the absence of having anything else and went right to the link and said, yeah, what's it going to cost me to get?
So for our purposes, we could do an up to $19,000.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, so in this also, the motion would be to purchase the hardware described as presented at a cost of up to $19,000 that would be utilizing ARPA dollars. I would entertain that motion. Moved by Ketzen, seconded by Forrester. Any discussion on this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Okay, the third motion, and this is for the audio, video, electrical upgrades of this room. This would be to entertain or give direction to the county administrator to put together a bid sheet and develop bids for the upgrades as presented. Motion.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Humphrey, seconded by McLean. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carried. All right. Next item on the agenda is point I. This is the ARPA Committee's motion to approve the Regional Office of Education Nexus Program request.
Mr. Chairman, can we
Yes.
back up 1 second?
Sure.
Please. We're gonna look at what Ingle's gonna do here for electrical and bid that and everything. I wonder if at the same time they're here, if you guys, the building committee could have them. Look, I happened to be here when the guys were doing the elevator inspection. I'm sure they shared with you that there's no lights up there. So everything they're doing with headlights and flashlights, and it's taking them more time, costing us more money. If we couldn't get an outlet up above the elevators and maybe a light for them. And if Ingle's gonna be here doing work, and they're gonna be right up here working, it's
Contractor A.
So, excuse me, so
Contractors, yeah.
Tom, FYI, in the budget, Greg did actually get a quote from Angle Electric to do panel upgrades in this building. And that is moving forward as part of the budget request this year. Of course, that bid or that quote was months old now, so it'll have to be quoted and potentially go out to bid depending upon where we're at with the quote at that time. Right now, it's at 28,000.
my understanding was that was not included. Wendy, this is additional. So
So,
I'd just like to have us make sure we get that, whoever the contractor is that bids on it. I'd like to see us get that done so that we're not spending time and money on elevator inspections when these guys can turn on a switch or plug in a light.
so
Make sure we get it included. That's what I bring up.
Greg, Tom, do you want to make any comments?
Okay,
I'll have a look at it.
thank
I'll be
you.
able to sneak it in on the process.
Well, even if it's not snuck in, I mean, if they're in this part of the building,
All the way
working, it seems like that's time to do it, you know?
All right,
Thank you.
very good. All right, on to point I, Mr. Kitson. Motion to approve the Regional Office of Education Nexus Program request. This is another expenditure as recommended by the ARPA Committee. So let's do it and then we'll discuss it. Moved by McLean, seconded by Kitson. Discussion. Wendy, do you want to Can you speak to this? or-
I could, if I could
Yep.
just find my little report here, which I seem to have lost. So the ROE, Chris Tennyson came forward to the ARPA committee a few months ago with a request for a program that has to do with essentially truancy and providing support, not just to the students, but to the families to get to the root of why there is truancy. They came up with a program, presented it to the schools, and the schools are essentially on board with the program. Unfortunately, the schools were in the middle of their budget year, so they didn't have anything budgeted for this. So his request, and he made this request to all three counties, ARPA committees, Whiteside and Ogle. And it's my understanding that everybody is now approved helping out with the budgeting for this given year. And going forward in the future, the school districts have agreed to allocate money to keep the program going. So at this point in time, he's just looking for the funding for this year, which amounted to, help me out, is it in front of you, 23,000?
$25,334.
So that is an equal split with the other two counties.
That'll be an annual fee.
No, it was a one-time fee. After that, the schools have agreed to allocate funding towards that and give that to ROE to keep the program going.
And this was approved by, I'm sorry, I wasn't able to be at the ARPA meeting. This was approved by the ARPA committee?
It was.
All right, very good. All right, any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. All right, point J, we have 3 budget adjustments. Paula, would you like to speak to these?
Kind of really just two. There's one that didn't fit on one page, so it kind of rolls over to two.
Okay.
So the zoning department, because of their, lots of activity this last year in the zoning department, so they had some additional per diem and mileage and supplies and things that they needed to do to spend. So, but they also have lots of additional zoning fees that they collected. So this budget adjustment actually increases the amount of zoning fees budgeted, and then it increases some various line items, expense line items, such as per diem and mileage and some supplies and so on and so forth. So that's what that one is. The second one is for the IT department, and back in the summer of 2020, a year and a half ago, when we set up that budget, we didn't know how the IT office was going to be structured at that point. So we put some money into the contingency fund, knowing that once we had probably a new IT director, there would be some changes. So this is taking that contingency money and putting it into his departmental budget to pay for the additional staff and some of the other initiatives that he's taken on this last year. So that's what both of those are.
So do these need to be separate motions, or can we do these as together?
I think
The
you could do them
two budget
together.
Adjustments
Yeah.
as combined.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think the motion could be, I so move to approve the presented budget adjustments for the IT and zoning departments. That work, Charlie? Okay.
All right. There's the motion. I'd entertain that motion.
Can she make a motion?
She cannot.
Okay.
You just need to say
You
so
guys
moved.
make the motion. Would you like, so Mr. McLean would love to make that motion, and Mr. Kitson would second that motion. Discussion. Anybody have any questions in regards to the budget? I did. You know what assumptions lead you to.
So my question would be on the zoning. We're close to the end of the budget year,
Mhm.
and these are round numbers. I mean, is this gonna be enough, or to
Yeah.
get to the end of the years?
Yeah, I did a little projecting for that department, and
Okay.
yeah, we should be good.
Any other questions?
Just
Arlen?
curious, what was 60,000 of contingencies? That was in the budget, or that was in their budget?
It was in the general funds budget. We had like our
If you had that in an individual.
no, we put it
They
in
had
the
that in their own
overall.
budget. We wouldn't be having the
You were on the
conversation.
Finance committee last year,
Right.
weren't you?
Yeah.
Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. All right, well, we do not have
Hey,
have a
Jim,
request for
Jim.
executive.
I just had some information if you got a minute. I just
Sure.
wanted to address the finance committee and inform them as to where we are on work over at the old LEC. Progressing nicely. We've been working with Wendler and Associates, had multiple meetings, about one a week since as recent as yesterday. And the structural came out just fine. We're now into the design phase, what we're going to do and what we're not going to do. We've met with the sheriff in regards to his Sally port. There's plenty of room over there to put in holding cells and his Sally port and make it very nice for him. The rest is going to be done in design, and with the money for that will come out of the chairman's budget, which the $2,500 did too. It's probably going to be around $10,000 to get forms together to show everybody what's going to happen over there, or what progressively will happen. It will be nice, not going to be a palace, but it's going to be a bare bones, very, very usable building.
Well, we will be looking forward to seeing.
Absolutely. I want to just, if anybody had any questions, I want to make sure we got them answered. Got my commercial contractor there and my maintenance supervisor, and we met with a couple of engineers and the sheriff over the last 3 weeks, month, and everything's progressing fine. So we'll know a little bit more next Tuesday.
John, you were quoted in the paper as saying it's gonna cost a lot of money. What's your definition of a lot of money?
That was not a quote of mine.
Well, that's what
Rachel
it said in the
took a
paper,
little
so-
liberty there. We'll probably do it for, yeah, we need to get some
Okay,
more information first. What did she say? It will cost a lot of money?
I believe that was the quote.
No, I think probably it was more like we will save a lot of money, because the original plan was to tear the building down and rebuild another building, the Sally Port, and the original cost were pushing $2 million by the time we got done with that. We'll probably do it for 25% of that.
Hope so.
It'll be a nice building too. It'll be very serviceable, and we'll have more square footage. And
See, if you don't read the paper, you don't see those things.
yeah, I didn't catch that, Tom. I'll read it again.
Holy cow.
Sorry, Rachel.
No, we're not gonna spend a lot of money.
Spend a lot of money.
All right, no executive session. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Before we do that. Yeah, I made the mistake of, everybody's left on Zoom pretty much. Marilyn, do you have anything I'm sorry, I didn't call on everybody that was on Zoom.
Not at this time. A couple times I've raised my hand with some comments, but everything worked out, so we're good.
No, that's.
That darn IT person, seriously.
I know.
Need some training.
I was pretty good as an administrator, but IT
You
is
need to
not
have
a
a flashing hand or something that catches our eye. Anyway, sorry about that, Marilyn. I should have
That's
called
why
on
we
you
need the
sooner.
new system, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's exactly right. Okay, we had a motion
I
to
made it.
adjourn from Mr. Humphrey, seconded by Mr. Kitson. All those in favor signify by saying aye. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Anytime. Anytime. Just call me, it's at the barn there.
Do you have any more motions for me to do?
Yeah, just let me know.
Sorry about that.
I could have. Right.
Well,
It's $5 a pop.
Yep.
well, if I was a psychologist, I'd say that was for you.
Shoot me a text, let me know. Whatever. Could be. Combine, so. No, I'm serious. Let me know. Text me. Hey, Paul. Damn it.
Had a lot of business, a lot of motions.
I got a question. I didn't want to bring it up in open meeting because I was Just wanna make sure. So I was looking at these and I was just trying to cross reference to see if everything reconciles. So I took an easy one. Public safety. It says here, through 9/30,
changes?
that we have taken in 1,060,000.
Well, that's an interesting question.
Okay.
I don't know.
Good.
Okay, so then I went over here, I looked on this sheet. Yep.
After.
And I took this amount off because I went to September. So I took the balance and subtracted that. I think it's coming to 180,000. Or 1,080,000. Well, that's why I was wondering. So let me just double check my math now, because I was looking wrong. You got 12.
See you, Arlen.
1204, 983.
983 minus 129.
Awesome.
Yeah, I stand to be corrected because I was looking at the wrong column. That's why I didn't want to call it out and because I would have looked like an idiot. I'll circle back. Are we closing? Oh, he ought to close that piece of dog crap. Idiots that voted for that freaking infrastructure bill.
Here's the positive thing. Really, the next day, I'm sure that's during the assembly passed. The next day. Get together. And he's.
I knew it, so, well, back then, I'm sure it was dad.
So.
Yeah.
See, my dad was on.
I'll say you're. Earlier got him up to the sea.
No, I really did talk about it, but I didn't.
Right.
I understand.
No, I know.
Right.
So.
God bless America.
I have no power.
Leave that.
Oh.